Yo, 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 welcome to another episode of the Culturally Controversial Podcast, Sports Edition Talk. I'm your host, Simply Nicholas87, and my co-host today, Mr. T. Hart, man. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. And for all the people that's tuning in out there, man, if y'all new to the channel, y'all go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We on the road to 100, and I think we are 24 away. We slowly creeping up, but we getting there. The likes on the videos are going up. The content is coming out. So, like I said, man, I appreciate you guys for checking us out, giving us a chance to be a part of your visual stream, if you want to call it, or just be in your thought. Well, you know what I mean. We
I,
appreciate
I
you.
think they got you, Nick. You're saying that anybody who wants to make us a part of their evening, you appreciate it.
Yeah, it's
And
very
um
appreciated.
and one other thing I want to add, that on that Ralph Jackson interview from a few weeks back, we're up to 299 views. One person, tell your mother, tell your daughter, tell your sister, tell your brother. We just need one more view to get to 300. Can
One
somebody,
view.
please, ma'am, please, sir, can somebody just go and view that interview? You'll be delighted with what you hear, and that'll get us to 300. And Nick, everything's back in your hands. I just wanted to put that out there.
All right, man. You know what I'm saying? But I appreciate you guys anyway. But let's get into tonight's show. Well, basically, it's just a recap of the week of sports, man. It's been a lot going on, a lot of good things I could talk about. And a topic that I hadn't really talked about on this episode, and I want to go ahead and get into it. I know a lot of people are not really into baseball, but we got some good baseball news, and I think a lot of um, some pitchers are very upset about this new banned substance rule about the pitchers having. I don't know if it's pine tar. I don't know what kind of substance it is, but now it's been a lot of that. It's been a lot of hoopla about it, and I seen the story break last night on ESPN. Tell me your thoughts about it, if you.
Well, I hadn't really been keeping up with baseball like that, but you're saying that there's now a banned substance or something that pitchers are no longer allowed to use in Major League Baseball. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's kind of like a grip substance. You know how they
Yeah,
banned pine tar a while
like
back
yeah,
with
I know
bad.
tar pines, man. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. As far as this is news to me right now. So as far as how I feel about it, you got to look at where pitchers are coming from and why pitchers would be frustrated. You could say for the last 20 or so years, this has been a hitters league. You could say even going back to the '90s, from the McGuire Sosa home run battle, even through the Barry Bonds era, through the era of A Rod. It's been a league that's been making its money off of people hitting home runs. It's been and the rules, you could say, were catered to hitters. So and during that time, you had a situation where a lot of these big time hitters were being accused of
that's
using
still.
performance enhancing drugs, whether it's steroids, whether it's human growth hormone, whatever the case may be. Even from McGuire's, the Sosas, the Bonds, the Alex Rodriguez's, these guys have been
Conseco.
accused.
Yeah.
Canseco, which Canseco snitched on a lot of people.
Yeah, he
So
did.
so when you look at it, the pitchers, I guess they would feel like they've been at a disadvantage all along with the things that's been going on, and they weren't cracked down on at the time that they were happening. It was later on when it became an issue. So I think they're feeling like they've already been at a disadvantage from the get go, and then now you're taking this from them. They're probably feeling frustrated, like you let this go on all these years with hitters, and we had nothing to our advantage, and now all of a sudden you're going to take this from us when we're already at a disadvantage. So I can get where the pitchers are coming from. As a fan, I think that no one should be having any kind of substances to give them a competitive advantage. I don't think hitters should be doing anything to give them a competitive advantage, such as performance enhancing drugs, such as cork bats, whatever the case may be. And I don't think pitchers should have anything enhancing. I think that both sides should be using their natural ability and made the best person win. I think that game needed to have been cleaned up a long time ago. And I
Yeah,
understand that they're
agreed.
trying to make sure the game is cleaned up, and let's keep all cheating, all unfair advantages, all performance enhancing substances. Let's keep it all out of the game, and let's let the best athletes go out there and make the best man win.
And I put this on there too. I feel like, and that now this is just my opinion, that the number one sport that has had the most controversy in probably the last 30 years is baseball.
Yes, just from a
And I
cheating
say that
standpoint.
because of the fact that, baseball players get paid buku amounts of dollars. No salary cap, none of that. And the
Correct.
fact that they are using enhancement drugs, steroids, uh, cork bats, or some sort of banned substance. I agree that they should ban some of these things because it's more of a game of skill than it is a game of strength. So you should
You,
actually use what you have. I mean, you
well,
got this far.
the culture of cheating is embedded in MLB. Even if you go back to the Houston Astros just a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, World Series champions, where they basically blatantly got caught cheating. I don't know if it's stealing signals or something along those lines, kind of like your Patriots, but in baseball. Um, they,
Allegedly,
they,
allegedly.
yeah, but I mean, with the Astros, blatantly got caught, and a lot of people even call for that World Series championship to be rescinded. So when you have a World Series championship that's in question when that champion was blatantly caught cheating. The MLB has ruled that they cheated to do it, and it still stands. So when you're setting that standard that you could cheat to win, and you ultimately will not face punishment for it. When I say not face punishment, meaning that your championship still stands, then that incentivizes teams and players to cheat. So at this point, it's like you can't say on one direction that we want the game clean, but then in another direction we're going to allow blatant cheating. They need a wholesale cleaning of cheating and impropriety in the game. Baseball has a long history. Even when you go back to the Black Sox scandal with the 1919
Team.
Chicago
Yeah.
White Sox, when they blatantly threw a World Series for gambling money. So even throughout the history of baseball, its integrity has been in question with what's allowed and what's not allowed. And even in the year 2021, it seemed like those clouds still hang over the sport. So at some point, there has to be a cleaning of their culture. It's become a point where it's almost like the sport has a generational curse when it comes to cheating. Just like families have generational curses, Major League Baseball has a generational curse when it comes to the game being trusted by the spectator. At
Well,
this point, it's hard to trust even what you see in Major League Baseball.
and then, like I said again, with that, I feel like, so I just go back and say probably like during the, let's just say Prohibition era. I know in some way and somehow that baseball was ran either by a mob, some part of the mob family. I'm 100%. I just feel that baseball has had that negative uh exclamation mark on them due to the fact that some part of baseball had something to do with the mob tie. And the whole story with Bugsy Seal, allegedly Bugsy Seal was he was a part of the mob allegedly. Uh, I just think baseball has always had, like you said, had that
That
bad.
stain on it. There's always been a stain on Major League Baseball. Anytime you have a sport where your all time hits leader is not in the Hall of Fame because when he was a manager he got caught gambling on games and while he was a manager. When your all time hits leader is banned for life from even being a part of the sport, that epitomizes a dark cloud and a stain on the integrity of your sport.
That's true. And like I said, man, I'm happy they enforced it. It needed to be enforced anyway, because I mean, at the end of the day, it needs to be played fair. I mean, you got all these other sports that they play. I don't think basketball players take HGH. I've never heard a story of an NBA player take HGH or steroids to enhance his jump shot. So
Correct. From for the most part, performance drugs might be a problem, but performance enhancing drugs
well, yeah,
has
drugs,
yeah,
but
but performance enhancing drugs hasn't been an issue. I think the only performance enhancing drug suspension I can recall since I've been watching the game was last year with DeAndre Ayton last season when he had 25 game suspension for testing positive for a banned substance. But generally speaking, performance enhancing drugs really isn't a part of basketball, and I think a lot of that's because with basketball players, In the NBA, that's the one league. That's one league where you can say that the players who are on these rosters are truly the best athletes of that sport in the world. So I don't think it's necessarily needed in baseball. These
Baseball,
guys have
yeah.
pure. I mean, in basketball rather. These guys have pure. A lot of these guys are pure raw athletes anyway. So like you're saying, those substances are not going to help you fix your jump shot, like you said. So I think whereas with something like baseball, even though hand-eye coordination is important, when you're trying to be a power hitter, your strength and upper body strength is going to matter. So I can see where somebody's trying to put on more muscle mass. So I get the analogy that you're drawing, or the comparison that you're drawing, or excuse me, the contrast that you're drawing as to why basketball will be different. So I would say from a substance standpoint, basketball is much cleaner. I think where basketball is not, where it has its stain is with its poor officiating.
Yeah, poor officiating. That's definitely.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know if that's something. I'm sure when we get into talking about basketball on this, we'll even get into that. But I don't want to get you off of topic. So I'm following your lead, and wherever you want to guide us, man, I'll do my best to go along with you.
Well, I'm gonna wrap this baseball up. I just wanted to get that story across there because when I read it, I was like, it's about freaking time that they actually start putting something into implement because baseball has just been more controversial than, like I said, any sport that in the United States. But
Yeah,
bar none.
and
Basketball,
I don't follow baseball like on a large level. I mean, I during playoff time, I mean, I'm always going to know who's in the playoff, who's competing for a World Series, who's
World
competing for a
Series.
pennant. Of course I'm going to know that, but as far as just during the regular season, typically I'm talking under normal circumstance, you got a 162 game season. Most of the time, I'm not following it that closely in the 162 game season.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next topic. I think this broke across my desk a couple of days ago. Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Nets. If you already know where I'm going with this, the front office, I think they've had enough of Kyrie Irving, and they're
Really?
probably willing to trade. Yes,
It can't be because of his play. It got to be because of
I
his.
think it was because of he
He's
took
not,
the absence.
and he more than once. He did it when there wasn't any like known health issue. Just something goes on society that he's upset about. And he just says, "I'm leaving and I'm taking time off." Which
But it
when
was.
you're
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead.
no, what I was getting ready to say is when you're a professional, that's not what you're supposed to do. Now, I can understand if there was some real personal emergency issue that they had going on. That's one thing. But when you're just like, okay, there's some issues going on between Israel and Palestine. Granted, you have a right to be passionate about whatever you're passionate about, but something like that, that's not a reason for you to say, hey, I'm just not going to show up to work. Or when you talk about what happened January the 6th at the U.S. Capitol, like, of course, you have a right to feel however you feel about it, but I didn't not show up to work for like a week just because that happened. That has nothing to do with me showing up to where I'm paid to do a job, and that's the point where he's been irresponsible, being coddled and being babied and allowed to do something that other players weren't allowed to do, just take off at his own leisure, even though he was healthy and cleared to play and just not playing. And I didn't think that should have been allowed either. So I thought that should have been handled when it took place, and they didn't do it. And now you're saying they're looking to trade him because
They were
when it
looking
comes
to trade him because the story when it popped out, it was the fact that he did take the absence, and then that was reported that he was at a gathering during the time of the pandemic when the NBA protocol was, not to be in a gathering of some sort with no mask.
right,
So I
I
think,
don't I don't feel sorry for him if they do trade him. I think a lot of these people are not going to put up with his mess. Go ahead.
yeah, I agree too, man. I think he wore a lot of welcomes out. Been in a lot of good situations as a player. I don't think you get no better situations than what he had. I mean, he held Cleveland down until LeBron came back. He's a good player. Don't get that twisted.
I
Man's a
wouldn't say
good
he held
player.
him. I wouldn't say he held him down. He put up good numbers till he came back, but they weren't even making the playoffs.
No, they weren't
Um,
making the playoffs, but I mean, he stuck with the franchise. I
yeah,
mean, and like I said, he's a good player. His numbers speak for themselves. But at the
he's
end of the day, your conduct outside of basketball, it
he,
makes
he, he's
you.
unreliable. He's unreliable because you never know when he's going to show up for work.
Yeah, it makes it makes teams and owners look at him like, okay, I get it, you're Kyrie Irving, you're good, but
You're not
we
reliable.
can't. Yeah, you ain't reliable. You just
It's just like this. I'm not going to call your employer. I'm not going to call my employer's name, but your employer. I'm assuming if you haven't scheduled a vacation there, PTO, they're expecting you to be at work tomorrow. Is that if you're scheduled to be there? Is that correct?
if I had to work tomorrow, I'm off tomorrow. But yeah, I get what you're saying. We can go. Yeah,
Right. Like well, let's say on the days that you're scheduled, whatever day, when's the next day you're scheduled to be at work?
Sunday,
Okay, so Sunday they're looking for you to be there, right?
right?
So if you're not going to be there Sunday, you need to call your boss or somebody, let them know like, hey, this came up. I need to be off Sunday. Can I get Sunday off? That it would be something like that to where if you weren't able to work Sunday, you would ahead of time reach out to your boss and let him or her know that you're not able to be there Sunday or something came up. That's how something like that is how you would go about it, right?
Right.
Right. I'm expected to work tomorrow. If I'm not able to work tomorrow, the minute I know that I'm not able to work tomorrow, first thing I'm going to do is call my boss and say, hey, this is a situation that's happening right now. Can I'm not going to be able to come in tomorrow. Can I put my PTO in and not come in tomorrow, or I'm still not going to be able to be there, but I still I'm
I'm
letting you
giving
know
you heads
now.
up. Yeah.
Right, right. There's protocol that you go by when you're in a profession. Same thing there. So and if there so in his situation, if he's expected to be there and then he just take 2 weeks where he just doesn't show up and don't report, that's to me that's job abandonment. And at that point, he just no showed work for a couple of weeks just because he was in his feelings, didn't even go through proper protocols or anything, and just didn't show up to work. And when it comes to a coach, owner, or whatever, a franchise leader, or general manager, or whatever, when you're bringing in a star player, a cornerstone to build around, you're expecting to have his availability. And if he's not injured, you're looking for him to be there. If he doesn't have some family emergency or something of that sort, some kind of outstanding circumstance that's a one-off circumstance, you're expecting him to be there. And at his own leisure, when he just says, "I'm just not going to show up for 2 weeks," that could be detrimental in your standings and what you're trying to do, and as far as trying to win a championship. And when you never know at what point when he just say, "I'm not going to show up," at that point you become unreliable. And when you're unreliable, people are not going to put up with you. And at this point, he showed it in Boston, that you can't take his word. He definitely showed it in Brooklyn that he's unreliable. And at
Yeah.
this point, I don't think anyone would give him the keys to the car.
No, I don't think they will either. They got to be somewhat desperate to give him the keys to that car. And at this point, a lot of teams will be okay.
And he's
And
injury prone. To top it off, he's oft injured. So you're already expecting him to miss a lot of time with injury because he does every year. And then when you add the part where he just taking days off even when he's not injured and going AWOL like that, you can't trust him.
and then I'm put it this way too. I feel like the whole James Harden thing was a heads up that something's gonna happen with this dude. We need to go ahead and prepare. And I get James Harden wanted out of Houston. And now that I look at it in this light, I think that they pulled the gun to get James Harden because they knew Kyrie Irving would be on his shit.
I could agree with that. James Harden is a notorious choke artist, though, and we saw it again. He went
Yeah,
5 of 23, and at this point, anybody who defends James Harden and says he's an elite player, at this point, I mean, year after year after year, even in this situation, on Game 7 at home to go 5 of 23 from the floor and basically leave Durant by himself to try to carry that team. At this point, he is what he is. He's been in the league
he
since what? He's been in the league since 2009 or something like 2008.
about
Um,
8, 9. I think
yeah, he's
9.
I think his rookie year was 2008 2009 because he was at Arizona State in 2008. So yeah, he got drafted out of Arizona State in 2008. So he's been in the
Yeah,
league 13 years now. At
right.
this point, this is what he is. He's a choker. He's a great regular season guy who lives at the free throw line in big games in the biggest moments when you need him to shine the most. He's nowhere to be found.
Nowhere exactly. And shout out to Kevin Durant because man, he gave it all he had. I mean, you can't ask for no more from that man. I get it.
Now, I agree. He did what he was supposed to do.
He did what he
Uh,
had to do.
Yeah, coming off a ruptured Achilles, which is typically a devastating injury, which a guy in the early 30s, when they usually have an injury like that, they are
Yeah.
never the same. He made a ruptured Achilles look like a sprained ankle. So kudos to him for recovering and bouncing back from that ruptured Achilles the way he did. He looks like he never missed a beat.
But
Unfortunately, they didn't win that series, and
series.
I'm kind of glad they didn't.
And I think I predicted. Well, I did predict that Brooklyn would win, but I did say it would either go 6 or 7 games. I called
I
it. I
think
didn't think. I don't think I said six
I think
or.
you said 7.
I think I said
I,
7.
yeah, I think you said 7. I mean, it's recorded on the
Yeah,
podcast in which we talked about
previous.
it. I'm not about to go back to go find out, but I take your word for it.
Yeah, I know. I think I remember. But I did say I called Brooklyn, but I remember. I think I said a couple games, but either one. Uh,
Yeah,
I'll say give give Milwaukee credit. They executed down the stretch when they needed to at that moment. I mean, Kevin Durant, you can only hope to contain him. You're gonna get what you get.
yeah.
Give
Chris Middleton deserves a lot of credit for his play. He didn't have a great shooting night, but down the stretch of the game, he had some big shots when he
big
needed them
shots. He
most.
did. He
Uh,
definitely did. Going into that, I want to say it was probably like the somewhere 3.5 minute mark where it was that tit for tat going down the stretch.
every time they needed a bucket, he came up with one. And give Giannis Antetokounmpo credit too. He had 40 points in that game. Had a big jump hook in that overtime to tie the game up before Middleton hit the go ahead basket. So give
Yeah,
him credit. He struggled at line in the first half. The second half, he got himself together and got his poise. And as the leader of the team, when they got down, he and Middleton did not let that team fold. They kept their poise. Didn't have a lot of help, but Drew Holiday was horrible in that game, but
yeah.
they found a way down the stretch to keep their poise and get it done. So you got to give them credit on the road against a very tough team, even with Irving out, a team that they still weren't favored to beat, and they went on the road. And even after they had the game won and Durant tied the game up and sent it in overtime, you'd have thought that that would have been the gut punch that would have where they could have waved the white flag, but they still kept their poise, even if they got down by 4 in overtime. They still kept their poise and found a way to make big plays down the stretch and end up winning the game. So you got to give them kudos for going on the road and against an excellent team and winning a game 7 against them.
Yeah, I definitely give them the kudos for that. And I will say this as well. I'm not a Milwaukee fan, but I like Giannis. He's a he's a good compliment. I mean, he's a good player. Like, I mean, he's not a good shooter, but he is. He has a lot of. I give him. He got heart. He had heart in that game, and that
I
man
admit,
played the whole game.
yeah, and the man's a two-time league MVP, so let's not act like he's a slouch.
Sorry,
His game is not pretty. No, it's not pretty. But
it's not pretty.
I don't think he's paid to be pretty. I don't think he's paid to be sexy. So
No.
no, it's not. It's not pretty. He doesn't stand around shooting threes like Curry, but that's not his game. But he's great at what he does. He's a downhill player who attacks the basket. He could also post up as well. And
Yeah.
I put it like this: he had 40 points in the game. He led his team to victory, and you can't take that away from him.
I wanted to get into the Western Conference part of that series as well. I think that one went with the Clippers and the 'cause I think they were
Jazz.
still yeah. Uh Utah,
You know what I want? How I feel about Utah and
how you
Quinn
feel?
Snyder? They ought to be ashamed of themselves. They ought to be walking
Really?
around. They ought to be walking around Salt Lake City with bags on their head. And I'm gonna tell you why. You're you were up 2 games to nothing. Now, I don't want to hear nothing about Mike Conley. Mike Conley's a good player, but I don't want to hear it. You were up
Okay.
2 games to nothing. You, okay, you go into LA. They tied up 2-2 fine. Then Kawhi Leonard gets hurt. Their best player, their franchise player, their bread and butter gets hurt. Then they come in your building and win a game in your building without their best player, you're down 3-2. Then you have another game where you go to their building and you have Mike Conley back. You have a 25-point lead with the opportunity to tie the series up, and their best player is still out, and you let them come back from 25 down without their best player to beat you, to eliminate you after you previously had a 2-0 lead. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should be walking around with bags on their head. And Quinn Snyder, I don't know how he can look at himself in the mirror, and I don't understand how anyone can have faith in them after that. When you were the number 1 seed playing against the number 4 seed, when the last 2 games they did not have their best player, and they beat you in your building, and then you blew a 25-point lead in the elimination game and got eliminated. You should be ashamed of yourself. And I
Yes,
like
sir.
Donovan Mitchell. I like Donovan Mitchell, but at the end of the day, and I know and I'm not knocking him, but if an elite player and a great player would have never allowed that to happen to his team, especially when they were in that kind of prime position.
Oh no, they
And
definitely wouldn't.
and
They wouldn't
and,
let that
and
happen.
Rudy Gobert, I know he won Defensive Player of the Year. I don't want to hear it. They gave that man over $200 million, the highest paid center in NBA history, and he was non-existent, and he wasn't even that great on the defensive end in that. And it's not like he's guarding pick and rolls well or anything. They ate them alive out on the perimeter because he couldn't guard the perimeter. And offensively he wasn't engaged either. And this man was paid over $200 million, the highest paid center in NBA history. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely 100% agree with you. When you have the opportunity at the point where you can just do, you can win that series. Kawhi goes down. We already know what Paul George can do in certain moments. We already know. We know Pandemic P or George Paul or whatever you want to call him. We know what he
Play
does.
playoff P and all that crap. I don't know how he got the name.
But we know what he does in certain moments without Kawhi. Kawhi, we don't know when Kawhi's coming back. If he comes back at this point, this series coming up now, Chris Paul playing tonight.
Yep.
And if this team goes up 3-0, that should be it.
I think speaking of the previous game, speaking of poor officiating, which I was talking about earlier, down the
Mm-hmm.
stretch of game two, those officials, Scott Foster, who Chris Paul's teams have always had an issue with Scott Foster. I don't know if it's some personal bias or what, but that officiating was, I hate to say this, but it was piss poor. It's like every single stoppage they had to look at the replay booth. They said the last 48 seconds took, or the last minute and a half of that game took 45 minutes to finish. That is
It,
unacceptable.
it did. It really did. I'm like, this game's still on. Like,
And they
Alabama play.
and in every replay they looked at favored the Clippers too. I'm like, it's like every close call down the stretch, even when Patrick Beverly knocked the ball out of bounds, they still gave it to the Clippers. And after looking at it in the replay, I'm like, it's like they did everything to give that game to the Clippers. But I was glad that DeAndre Ayton was able to catch that ball and lob it. I mean, catch that lob and dunk it down there to win the game because that was 5 against 8 because they were playing against the Clippers and the officials and that was a piss poor job by the officiating there. So I was happy to see the Suns win it. Think I still think the Suns are going to win the series whether they win tonight or not. I think
they,
I think Chris Paul is in prime position to win his first championship this year. I will even go out and say I think the Phoenix Suns will win the NBA championship.
okay. I like that take. And I'm like you. Like, okay, so I'm gonna put it this way. Um, Regardless who wins that series, I think they'll win the NBA Finals. I just out of that series, the Suns
Right.
and the Clippers.
I kind of agree because I think Milwaukee. I know they're down 1-0, but I think they'll go on to beat Atlanta. I think they'll beat Atlanta in 5. I think they'll win the next 4 games. Actually, I think Milwaukee get there. I think the difference is Mike Budenholzer is a dumb coach. I'll say that. Sometimes when you watch his adjustments, like when teams go small, he still have Brook Lopez out there trying to chase the perimeter and stuff. I'm like, dude, put Portis or Tucker or somebody at center and downsize.
Besides,
It's like
yeah,
yeah, it's just like because Budenholzer helped blow that game last night. I think when it comes down to it, if I'm still going Phoenix, I think Phoenix and Milwaukee are playing the championship, but I think Monty Williams is a better coach. I feel like Phoenix will win that series, but because of coaching, and I feel like if Chris Paul gets to the finals, I don't think he's going to let his team lose.
and we all know who Monty Williams used to play for.
I don't forgot. I remember when he played in the league, but man, he played like in the late '90s. So it's been a while since I even. It's
I
been a
think
while
Monty
since I,
Williams he was a New York Knick, if I'm not
well, he was
mistaken.
he was a journeyman. He played a bunch of places, but
Places. But I think
he,
I know him more from the Knicks. Yeah, I mean
I
he could have
remember
been
when he
able to.
played. I remember when he played. It's just been. It wasn't like he was a mainstay. It's not like he was a mainstay at one place. He bounced around, but he was a power forward center. I remember when he played as a role player. And
Yeah.
I remember when he coached the New Orleans Hornets / Pelicans too, as far as that goes. But he's done an excellent job with the Phoenix Suns. James Jones, a former teammate of LeBron James, followed him everywhere he went. Uh, the acquisition of Chris Paul was an excellent one. So kudos to James Jones for pulling the trigger on that move. Turned that team into a championship team, a championship
Oh,
caliber team.
D-Roll
Um,
in the building.
What's going on, fellas?
What's up, man?
hey, hey,
Oh, no
hey!
much, man. How y'all doing this evening now?
I'm good, man. I didn't know
I'm
you
doing
were
good.
popping up, baby.
Yeah, I didn't think. I thought it was gonna take me longer than usual, but everything good to go now.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, and man, we were just going talking about the Phoenix Suns LA Clipper series and talking about who how what we think is going to transpire from here on out. So hey man, since you're here, man, I want to hear what you got to say about some of this.
Oh yeah.
Uh, I mean, I definitely think James Jones was, he deserved the award that he got this year, man. I mean, like you said, they were 19 and whatever 2 years ago. They made the
Yep.
miracle bubble run, and now they pretty much are the number 1 tender going into this NBA Finals, and this is without Chris Paul. So he definitely put a good talented group of guys together that just gelling right now and playing good ball, man. And Booker again, he's making a case to where he's can be one of the greats going forward in the NBA. So I definitely think Phoenix Suns are definitely going to be the new team going forward with the young talents and promise that they have.
And back to the and given what you were saying about Booker, I think the talent's always been there, the numbers have always been there, but I think playing alongside Chris Paul and having that veteran leader there, he's learned not only just to be an offensive weapon, but he knows when to score, when to facilitate, when to slow the pace of the game down, and we saw that in the first 2 games because they played him a lot at point guard, and when Rachel Nichols asked him what's the difference of being there with Chris Paul and without, he said, well, when I'm playing the point guard, he said, when Chris is here, all I have to worry about is scoring. He said, when Chris is not here, I have to set everybody else up and get everybody else going too. That's the difference between a good player and a great player. A great player is not a player who just scores. A great player knows when to take over and score and when to facilitate and get everybody else going. And that's the maturation in his game. And I credit a lot of that to Chris Paul being there because having that veteran leader who is a great facilitator in his own right. He's kind of I think he got to witness and see what it takes to make the team better, not only just put up good numbers, but also make your teammates better.
But I say this too, and a lot of people have been bashing Chris Paul, and I'm gonna say this: it's not a place that Chris Paul hasn't played that team hadn't got better.
Amen.
Ain't not
Amen.
one place. You cannot argue that fact. Every team that Chris Paul got on, regard minus the team that he was drafted to, when he went to LA, when he went to OKC, when he went to Houston,
Right.
those
The only
teams got better.
much better. The only reason doesn't have a championship because he gets hurt at the worst possible time. He's been the most unlucky. Like they were up 3-2 on Golden State, and he pulls a hamstring, and
Right.
then I mean, and missed the next 2 games. Um, when he was where else? When he was in, he had some good teams in New Orleans too. Remember, they won 57 games with the second
Yeah,
seed one year,
I
but
think it was him.
they
David was it David
David
West?
West, yeah, they lost the game 7 to the Spurs. That happened. That was in his earlier days in the league. But Oklahoma
Yeah.
City was a team that was trying to tank, and at the time they brought him there, that was actually a move in an attempt to tank, and they ended up making the playoffs anyway because of
Right.
him. So, and they weren't even trying to win, and it's like that's why I think they got rid of him after that one year. It's like we were trying to tank, and you got us to the playoffs. So they thought that he was washed up, but he's not.
Yeah,
Like,
they basically try to put a Carmelo on them, pretty
yeah,
much.
yep, and then he ended up like showing you like, the devil is a lie. Even with the Clippers, everybody knocked him what he didn't do with the Clippers. And I tell people this: what were the Clippers before he ever got there? They were the laughing stock of the
The stock
league.
of the NBA.
They had a couple of they had before he got there. They may have had that one decent season when they had Sam Cassell, Elton Brand, and those guys. Aside from that, they had done nothing since like they had made the playoffs twice since 1997 at that time before he got there, and they made it in '97 and '04. And aside from and only had one winning season at that time in the like last 25 years or something. At that time, they only had one winning season before he got there. And people talk about Blake Griffin and all that. Blake Griffin was there before Chris Paul got there. Blake Griffin made all those All Stars in the All NBAs because of Chris Paul. DeAndre Jordan was an All Star because of Chris Paul.
Chris
So
Paul.
you could say you could talk about what he didn't accomplish with the Clippers. I'll say that he's the one that put the Clippers franchise on the map and made them a perennial playoff team year in and year out.
He did. And I mean people gonna argue that Chris Paul. Chris Paul these teams that he got on, these teams got better. And the Sun situation, the coaching was good. The players, they were getting there during that bubble part where they went 8 on the bubble. I know they didn't. They
Yeah,
were not even contend. They were just there, just to be there. But like I said, that team was on the way to being good anyway. But it got even better when they had that piece of Chris Paul. Devin Booker didn't have a lot of pressure put on him then. Devin Booker could play like Devin Booker wanted to play, but
he
he
can
learned.
freelance.
Yeah, he learned as well that I can do a lot more. Chris showing me that when I run this point, I ain't got to worry about scoring all these points. I can see these looks, get these guys open. Then it becomes you can't double team me now
Yeah.
because now you got to worry about everybody else.
Yeah, and then what people don't forget, people forget they also added Cameron Payne too, coming off the bench. You got that shooter coming off the bench as well. I think they've learned to in the playoffs. They've used Aiton more to get easy buckets. What Aiton actually has an offensive game when they use him properly. I think
Yeah,
Booker, like I said, he's learning how to make everyone else better. I remember a few years ago, Booker always put up numbers. I remember he scored 70 points in the game one time,
yep.
3 or 4 years ago, but they lost that game. So my point is he knew how to put up numbers and score, but he didn't at that time. He didn't know. He was young, didn't know how to make the
Yeah,
team
Control the
around him
pace of the
better.
game.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. And now with Paul being out, we've seen that first 2 games that he's knowing how to control the pace, how to control the tempo, when to start firing shots, when to facilitate and get other guys going. He's learning how to feel through the game and knowing and knowing when to do what. And that to me, that's when you're showing that you're a star.
And my guy Snatcher Souls made a good point. If CP3 is healthy in the finals, he should get MVP. I agree. I think he should. It,
I mean, if he's the best performer, I mean,
like
he
unless Booker gets 30, like you said.
yeah. I mean, he's good enough to get it. I would love to see him get it. It would be proof that it would show that his hard work paid off. He's got to put in time. He's done things the right way. He wasn't ring chasing, trying to team up with LeBron and Wade and people like that. And those are his buddies. But he's always been a competitor, and I love his
Right.
competitive spirit. So I would
North
love to see.
Carolina's own, baby.
Yeah, Winston Salem. I would former West Forsyth Titan.
Yes,
So
sir.
he didn't even go to the Oak Hill Academy, nothing like that. He stayed at West Forsyth the whole time. He didn't
Yep.
leave and go to one of those boarding schools. Um,
Yeah. And played and wait
so
for him.
yep, we played 2 years at Wake. So I will be happy. The greatest thing, the second greatest player to ever play at Wake Forest, as great as he is, but nevertheless, I would love to see him to get his.
Listen, man, I don't even want to talk about that. I think that would have happened too. If the
So
Lakers
yeah.
that trade would have went through, he'd had a ring. He would
But
have. But
maybe, but at I mean, maybe because the Lakers were giving up a lot to get him. Because what people forget about in that trade, in that deal, it
Yeah, that
was
was a that.
yeah, the Lakers were giving not the Lakers were giving up Pau Gasol and Lamar Odom in that deal.
And some
Um,
picks.
yeah, so I can't just the front
Yeah,
court. You would only have Andrew Bynum left. I like Bynum, but he was hurt a lot. So
yeah, that part, yeah,
yeah, so I don't. The thing about it, the Lakers were giving up way too much in that deal, and then and the Lakers still got ruined as a result of it because Lamar Odom got his feelings and demanded to be traded anyway when he found out they were going to trade him. So they traded him to the Dallas Mavericks for a bag of potato chips, and
yeah.
then basically his role got filled by Josh McRoberts, and at that point things just kind of fell apart for the Lakers because Lamar got his feelings. I mean that's business, but it is what it is. I don't think it's just that simple where you paired them back there with Kobe Bryant, they'd have won the championship because they'd have been painfully thin in the front court. And what people don't realize, Lamar Odom, if you losing Lamar Odom would have been big. People don't realize, no, he didn't average 30 points a game, but in that championship game seven against the Boston Celtics, he only had 8 points in that game, but he was the reason they won that game. When they took Bynum's knee was bothering him, and Bynum was having a hard time guarding Rasheed Wallace because
Yeah.
he was spreading the floor on him. And when they put Odom in there, Odom picked the tempo of the game up. And when he picked the tempo of the game up, that's when the Lakers offense got going. He was the one that provided the spark in the third quarter to the fourth, which led to the Lakers making that run in the fourth quarter to come back and win that game. And I say that in that game seven, when Jackson took out Bynum at the end of the third quarter and put Lamar Odom in the game, that's what kickstarted that run in that
and
game
and
seven for the Lakers to
and
come back.
people don't realize that game seven. Shout out to Lamar Odom and shout out to Metal World Peace because
He had a
that
big
fourth
game too.
quarter.
And I'm gonna give a shout out. I'm gonna give a shout out to Derek Fisher too, because Kobe
Yep.
Bryant going into the late Kobe Bryant going into the fourth quarter, he was 3 for 21 from the field, and Kobe even said
Yeah.
Derek Fisher whispered in his ear. He said, "Kobe, calm down." He said, "You're effing up." He said, "You need to let the game come to you. Just relax." And Kobe hit 2 jumpers in a row, and then the game turned around from that point, and he calmed down and relaxed. Ended up having a decent fourth quarter, still ended up scoring 23 points, but
Yeah.
because he was 3 for 21 going into the fourth and finished 6 for 24. So that means he went 3 for 3 in the fourth quarter. He got himself in a better rhythm and quit turning the ball over. And the Lakers ended up winning that game 7. I'll never forget that game. And yeah,
I won't either.
He was Ron Artest at the time. Ron Artest hit some big buckets down the stretch of that game as well. So that was truly a team effort. But that lets you know how important a guy like Lamar Odom is. You take Lamar Odom off that team, even with Chris Paul, you would have had to get somebody else up front to fill the void, losing Paul Gasol and Lamar Odom. Yeah, that to me that would have been a tough sell. Just say, oh, they certainly would have won the championship. But on the principle of the thing, there was no legitimate reason for the league to reject that trade. At the time, the New Orleans Hornets didn't have an owner, and the league owned them. So to me, that was
Yep.
a conflict of interest. But it is
Yeah,
what
I
it
think
is.
that
It
was
happened.
too. Yeah,
It
and
happened.
the
It
thing
was what it
happened.
was.
Yeah, it never happened. It probably won't meant to happen.
And
Is
then
that
that
the
And
same
same?
did he get traded to the Clippers that same offseason, like a month later or something like that?
yep,
Who did?
Paul,
Yeah.
because
The
Vinny Del
next year,
Negro.
I think it was one more year. I feel like it was a gap.
Okay,
was it?
okay.
Yeah, no, it was that same year.
Was it the same year?
Yeah,
And Vinny Del
because
Negro
that
was
was the
coaching.
whole that was the whole thing about. They was like, well, dang, he going to the Clippers and the Lakers. It was something about I don't know what happened with
It
the
was,
NBA. The whole situation with the NBA not accepting the trade. It was somehow not
vetoed.
valid or whatever.
Well, no, it was like T said. It was a conflict of interest, pretty much because New Orleans didn't have an owner that to the suck guy that moved the team to New Orleans because he was in his feelings here, and they ended up selling the team.
Yep, Tom Benson ended up owning it. Thankfully, Tom Benson's the reason we were able to get our Hornets name back. But I won't get into that. But shout out
Yeah,
to Tom. Got R.I.P. Tom Benson. But shout out. Even though I hate him with the New Orleans Saints, I love the fact that he let us have our Hornets name back in Charlotte. So,
yeah.
Yeah, he gave it back.
But
but
go ahead, bro.
no, I was gonna say, but I think Paul went there that same year because they. Oh,
He
it
was a
might have been
free
a gap.
agent that year.
No, well, he was traded to the Clippers. He didn't sign with them.
Oh, he didn't
Uh,
Nah,
sign. I thought he was a
it
free
was
agent that
trade.
I
year.
don't. Yeah, no, I don't know if it was that same year or the after, but I know shortly thereafter he ended up on the because that was a lockout season. They only played 66 games that season, and I'm trying to think. The Lakers were the third seed that year because the Lakers lost to Oklahoma City in the second round.
Was that the same year we drafted Kimba, right? Was that that
Yeah,
year?
2011. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to because the Thunder were the second seed, the Lakers were the third seed. I'm trying to think of who was the first seed that year.
The
Dallas, maybe
Mavericks.
not. What?
We
I don't
lost
think
to
not.
Dallas. That was
That was
10.
your no. We lost to Dallas in 2011. I'm talking 2011, 2012, the lockout shortened season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dallas, yeah, Dallas was like the seventh seed that year. 'Cause Dallas won the championship the year before.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
Dallas.
think.
It was Dallas that summer. Yep, that's what it was. Dallas won the championship lockout. Then it started late December that
Yeah, on
year.
Christmas Day, Lakers
Yeah.
played the Bulls, lost to the Bulls the first game of the season on Christmas Day. I'm trying to think of who was the top seed that year because the Clippers weren't the top seed if they got in the playoffs that year. I'm trying to think because I know Thunder were the two seed, Lakers were the third seed, but I'm trying to think who the Spurs were the first seed, I think.
Might have
But
been
I'm
the
trying to
Spurs.
yeah, but I'm trying to think of who went to the Thunder and the yes Spurs were first seed because the Thunder beat the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals because the Thunder was down 0-2 to and they came back and won 4 games in a row and beat the
Yep.
Spurs in the West Finals and they lost to Miami in the
Miami.
championship.
That
Yeah,
was the big 3 year.
so I'm
Well, the
trying to
Yeah.
think,
back to back years.
but I'm trying to think the Clippers. I think Paul may have been with the Clippers. Vinny Del Negro was coaching the Clippers one of them years. Because the it might have been the year after because they fired Vinny Del Negro. He won 56 games, franchise record, and they fired him anyway. And then they brought in
And it
Doc
was
Rivers
yeah, it
because
was about
Chris Paul played under Vinny Del Negro at least 1 year, maybe two.
I
Shout
feel like
out
it
to
was maybe
Benny Joe
1 or 2
Black.
years. I said like was it 13 that yeah, I think I
That
feel like it
Doc,
was either 12 or 13 when Doc went in.
Yeah, because the Doc's last. I know that same year Miami beat Boston in the
East
conference final
finals,
because
yeah.
I remember vividly because Boston and Doc was still in Boston in 2011-12 because
Yeah.
Boston was up 3 games. Boston was up 3 games to 2, and Miami came back and won the series 4 games to 3 because that year Boston that might have been. I'm trying to think. Was that Doc's last year in Boston that he coached there
Was
one
that the
more
year
year?
Ray Allen went to Miami?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
No, it was. No, it wasn't. He came. He went there the next year.
He
The
went in
year
Okay.
they,
2013, right?
yeah, the year he was there. The year, yeah, the year they beat the Spurs, not the year they lost to them. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
or
Okay.
the year the
Okay.
Spurs, or the year the Spurs choked them, however you want to word it. But
Yeah.
that was the year that he went there. So now that was Ray Allen's last. That was Ray Allen's last year in Boston, and I'm trying to think the Doc leave that same year. So that means Del Negro. That means that Paul and them played under Del Negro 2 years. Yeah, because Del Negro won 56 games, which was a franchise record. But I'm trying to think that they lose early or something like that. I can't remember. Which is
I think in the same year when Mario Thomas called LeBron a B.
I I can't remember, but I know that Doc was still there in 2011-12, that 66 games season, because that was Miami when James won his first championship with Miami, because they won back to back. They won in 12 and 13. They lost in 14 to they lost in 5 to the Spurs in 14, and that's after 14 he went 14-15 he went back to Cleveland because he played in Miami 4 years. They won it twice.
Regardless of the fact, Chris Paul has. I mean, since we were still on the Chris Paul thing, but Chris Paul, every team he's got on, the team has had a it hasn't been a negative. It has been. It was an upcline. I mean, it wasn't a decline. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a incline.
He turned the team's turned around when his presence. I put it
Yeah.
that way. The big turnaround. I'm getting to the
Who,
next topic. It's still on
who's
basketball. How you guys feel about the USA men's basketball team?
don't care?
Um, I mean, it's kind of like, I guess, the
Except
hype.
The B team.
I mean, the hype ain't. It's the Olympics. It ain't like it used to be. You don't have, I mean, even if LeBron played, I don't know if I would be excited or not.
I'm not excited at all.
Yeah.
I'm not excited. Even if he played the Olympic
Yeah.
style, not even LeBron style, because Olympic style is that Euro style where that catch and shoot perimeter style. I don't even know
Yeah.
if this team will win a gold medal or not because I looked at the team. Is Durant playing on there? Yes or no?
Yeah, he
He
playing.
decided to play this year, and
And
which
see, if
is
I
kind
was
of stupid.
Yeah, and I don't even know if he's going to exert all his energy. You got to realize he's still just returned off a ruptured Achilles. I don't even
Yeah.
know if he's going to exert all his energy. And then everything else, you got crap like Kevin Love and stuff who's been washed for like 2 years.
And
Um,
he got.
I
I hate
think
to say
it's
it, not
Devin
the. He's dealing
Booker,
with a lot up top, and I'll put it that way.
yeah, with
Chris
his anxiety.
Middleton. It like you
I
said, it's the B
so
list.
it's BT and Chris Middleton's a great guy. I mean, nothing against him. Devin Booker's fine and all that too, but that's not a team that I could just say that ain't the dream team.
I'm trying to let the what's called cool off.
That
That's
team ain't
that's like
making me
that.
think a gold medal.
No, that team is like that '04 team that won the bronze medal.
Ooh, God. Who did they lose that year? Wasn't it Argentina?
Yes, they did. Manny Ginobili in Argentina.
Argentina, yep. I remember. I think I got an Argentina bag that year from the Adidas store. I think that was the same year they won it.
Yeah,
That's how
Argentina.
much I was rubbing it in.
But in the last couple of Olympics, Argentina always had good teams.
Yeah, they did, but the United States didn't have that 2004 team, and I go as
They didn't
far as
have
say
enough.
that
They didn't have enough
96
shooting.
team.
In the Olympics, you have to have good perimeter outside shooting in the Olympics now. You got to realize the rest of the world is a lot better. You got to realize you got a lot of these other teams that got good NBA players, like Spain, for example. They had Pau Gasol,
Yeah.
Mark Gasol, or Juan Carlos Navarro. You talking about NBA players um, on these teams, like with teams like France, Tony Parker,
France,
Nick
yes.
Batum, Nick Batum, Boris Diaw. You got like solid NBA players on this team. Germany, we had Dirk Nowitzki. When you talk about even back in the day, when you talk about like Serbia, you got like people like in the day even Peja Stojakovic. You have people like um the guy that used to play for like Sasha Vujacic and
Sasha
Goran
Vujacic.
Dragic, and people. We're talking about good NBA players on these teams. We're not talking about just scrubs. So when you look at it now, it's not what it used to be. You got, I mean, back, like even back in the day, the only other country that you thought of was like back when Yugoslavia existed, when you had Vlade Divac,
Croatia.
Tony Kukoc, Drazen
Kukoc, yeah.
Petrovic, RP, guys like that. But like now, across the board, you got multiple countries that have a lot of NBA players on it. So look at
Man,
Canada. Like we're gonna use Canada for example. You're probably gonna have guys like Trisha Thompson, like a Andrew Wiggins. I'm just using
Jamal
like a
Murray.
Jamal Murray. Yeah,
Yeah.
like you in the day when Steve Nash back when he was playing. I'm just using that. Like you had you got a lot of Canadian guys now that's in the NBA. So it's not like what it used to be.
Cause now you gotta look at it like you said, man. Cause who would Luca be? Luca would play for like uh, I don't know
I
what his nationality is.
I know what it is. Give me a minute. It might be like I don't know if he's like from Slovenia or something like that. And my bad when I said Goran Dragic and I said Goran Dragic for Serbia. Goran Dragic from Slovenia. So is Sasha Vucic. I want to correct myself. I don't know if he's like from Slovenia or where. But even with a country like Turkey, like Enes Kanter, back in the day we had Hito Turkoglu and people like that. So now my point is you got a lot of good NBA players on these international teams and have multiple ones on these international teams. So it's not like we're the only ones that got NBA players on them.
Right, and then yeah, like I said, in France, you're gonna have. I know you're gonna have Giannis and his brother, and then whoever else is in
The Greece,
France. Greece,
Greece,
yeah, I'm sorry, Greece, yeah,
yeah, and
Greece, and then
like even and speaking of Serbia, ain't Jokic ain't he Serbian?
I think Jokic is Serbian.
So like you talking about league MVP,
MVP,
um,
exactly.
right? Playing for Serbia, and you got other Serbian guys too. Any of them guys who last name ended Chich and Vitch, like Vujovic and all those guys,
And
all those.
I figure LeBron, with the health, he's not gonna play. Anthony Davis not healthy, he's not gonna play. Kevin Durant is
Nah,
not gonna put 110% in that because he ain't trying to go out there and
get
get
hurt.
hurt because that's what happened to Paul George.
Yeah, that was in the trials when Paul George broke his ankle.
Yeah, but even though that wasn't I mean, it was a FIBA
Yeah, it's a FIBA exhibition game. Sure
vision.
was.
Yeah, so I mean, if you making millions of dollars and you technically are a franchise player, I get it. It's your country, but
Yeah,
I'm not.
he didn't already won two gold medals though, so it's not like he just
Yeah,
yeah,
he's
it's
more there
different.
for the younger kids to get them because I'm all these people on this Olympic team. I don't think out of Kevin Durant, I don't know how many of them actually been. I mean, they probably played, but I don't know if they actually. Well, they hadn't competed for a medal as
I
far as
don't know.
like. That's what I said. This is a B list team. If you get bronze, you get bronze. It'd be a miracle to get silver, but
I I ain't gonna lie, I really don't care.
it,
I really don't care.
it's a
It's
watch
like
list.
it don't even mean what it used to mean. It's already a situation where in the state of the country it's
Yeah,
already like well let me finish. It's already this thing where like when it comes to the NBA in the state of the country where you got a lot of people who are against the NBA because the NBA stand up on a lot of social justice issues. So you got a lot of people who have a negative sentiment towards NBA players anyway because of some of the social justice stances given the climate that we have in society. So you have a lot of people who've already tried to portray the image of NBA players of being against their country. I'm not saying that's the case, but you have a lot of people who think that. So then when you put them in a position where they're representing the country, you got a lot of people that already feel like those two things don't mix. I don't even think you have a whole lot of public interest given the relationship with a lot of NBA players with people who people who consider themselves as pro USA. You got a lot of folks who consider themselves that who are not in favor of a lot of NBA players anyway. So I don't really think there's a lot of public interest in the basketball team of the Olympics anyway because of that reason.
I agree. And I'm putting this. I'm gonna move to my next topic. Regardless, I know how people view. I'm not even gonna say the color, but you already know. You know. They see us 100% different. They don't believe
Yeah,
in what we got going on. They don't
which
see it. They blind. The eyes open, but they act like they blind. I'm just gonna leave
willful
it at that.
blindness. I mean, I'll expand on it because let me articulate it a little bit. There's a lot of willful blindness to the things that are going on in society, especially things that are regarding Black people and the things that you see a lot of Black people protesting on. And when it comes to a lot of things you see Black people protesting on, the NBA people like LeBron James and the NBA players have been at the forefront of many of those protests. And then you have a lot of people who are against those protests who look at who juxtapose protesters and America as opposing forces. So when you put NBA players on Team USA, in some people's eyes, it's like you're putting people that some people view as having anti-American sentiments in the Olympics to represent American. And I think when you have a lot of people who are also upset with the NBA because of its social justice stances and the overt nature of the social justice protests that are spearheaded by a lot of NBA players, a lot of people take offense to that. And so a lot of people are not cheering for them anyway. So a lot of people don't see them as a true representation of America anyway. So when they're representing the U.S. in the Olympics, it's almost as if a lot of those people who have that feeling towards them are not interested in watching them anyway.
Well,
I
I'm gonna
mean,
say this, leave it at this, and like I said, all I can say for that, they should look in the mirror, cause last time I checked, we didn't go and storm Congress. We
true,
didn't go
and
tear up the
like,
Capitol City.
yeah, and you breached. I mean, I'm not going to get into a whole political thing, but
Yeah, yeah,
breached the U.S. Capitol, which is a felony crime, and you could argue is even a terroristic type action.
yeah.
And the thing about it, let me get. I'm gonna wrap it up, but I want to get something specific about this. What bothers me about it is they were allowed to go in there and breach them, which is illegal, and put congressmen and senators in danger, which is something where ordinarily that's something where lethal force is typically allowed to prevent from happening. And what bothers me about that is months before, when you had protesters under the Black Lives Matter moniker, they had the National Guard guarding the Capitol on the steps to make sure they couldn't get there. However, these conservative protesters were able to without any resistance breach the Capitol, walk in there, and actually sit on the Senate floor, break into Speaker Pelosi's office, and breach the entire grounds of U.S. Capitol and get inside the building, and all but one of them walked out alive. Or had it been, and I'll be frank about it, had it been Black protesters, there's a
You'd
great
be
chance there'd have been
dead.
a lot. Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. There'd be a great chance that there would have been a lot of bloodshed. So the difference in how these people who committed felonies, who were charged with felony crimes, they breached the Capitol. That's an act of treason. That's an act. That's a terroristic act. They
Against
breached
your
the
country.
yeah, they right. They breached the U.S. Capitol, which is also a security threat, a national security threat, and were allowed to basically do so without much resistance. Whereas we've seen, I remember that time when there was a pregnant woman, a woman who had just had her baby a few years ago, who had breached the Capitol steps, and they told her to stop, and they shot her dead right down the steps. Which I understand why they did it, but however, when these conservative protesters, majority white conservative protesters, were able to do the same thing, and they were met with zero resistance. That lets you know that there's a difference with how Black people are treated versus how white people are treated when it comes to the criminal justice system, and when it comes to even how it's viewed and how it's portrayed when the acts take place. So I mean, I'm not gonna. I'm beating a
Yeah,
dead horse, but I mean, but it's clear as day. Even the way the people were described, those people were not described as thugs. They weren't described as anti-American, even though they committed anti-American acts. It wasn't viewed or portrayed that way. So that lets you know the difference. It's not necessarily actors who's doing it, and a lot of people who represent and favor those folks are folks who are against the NBA. And like I said, we're beating a dead horse.
yeah. I'm gonna get in my next topic. I meant to get into this one. It might have been a week before last. I actually meant to get in this topic. I'm finna change my backdrop right quick. Backdrop. Hold on. Let's get
All
into
right,
this topic. You
stadium,
already know what this place is right here on the screen, don't you?
Bank of America Stadium.
All right. There was a story that popped out about the Panthers wanted a dome stadium, and owner David Tepper said if they want it, they will pay for it. How do you feel about those remarks? Considering that
I,
Bank of America Stadium has had recent remodeling, and I know the stadium is God knows over what 25, 30 years old at least.
it's 25. It's 25 years old. It's not at all.
Yeah. But what's your take on the whole deal about they want a new stadium
Oh,
somewhere
oh,
in downtown?
let me jump into this.
There you
First of
go.
all, first of all, you're worth $12 billion. Pay for your own damn stadium. Um, Second, Jerry Jones paid for his own. And down there in Dallas, he paid for that out of his own money. And David Tepper's richer than Jerry Jones. Kroenke in Los Angeles, he and private investors built that palace out there in Inglewood. So
The so
I don't.
far, yeah.
Yeah, so I can't understand what if Tepper don't want to do it out of his own money. I can't understand why he and some private investors can't do it. The thing is, whatever the city demands, the city's going to cave in and do it because they're going to have that fear of what happened with the Hornets, so they're going to do it, and he knows that. So,
Yeah,
I
that's how
so I mean,
I
yeah, they're going to do it. I mean, it's not something that I think is going to happen this year, next year, but within the next 5 years or so, they're going to do it.
know I'm gonna
Um,
get this. Like, I think it's the stadium is nice. Like I said, I've been to the stadium a couple times. I had the. It's nothing really wrong with that stadium.
No, it's nothing wrong with it. I think what he's looking at is he wants to host stuff like NBA Final, I mean, the NCAA Final Four, Super Bowls, and all
Super
that stuff.
Bowl,
And
yeah,
typically, unless you're like in Florida or something like that, you're gonna have to, with the exception of like Miami or any of the Florida, Tampa and Jacksonville, with the exception of the Florida cities, if you want to host a Super Bowl, you need a roof on your stadium. I feel like they're gonna. And then he later on said that after COVID, he wouldn't build one with a dome on it. But I'm like, you, I didn't think he was looking for a dome anyway. You could do a retractable roof. That way, if something like that happens, you can just have the roof open, and then when it's appropriate to close it, you can close it. So
yeah,
it's just like
and I like the
people going to and basketball arenas and stuff with a roof on it now. So I,
yeah
if you're gonna build one, I want one with a retractable roof on it, so you can host things like that. That can host the Super Bowl.
because I
Jack
mean I've been to the Mercedes Benz one. Now that's a nice
in
stadium.
Atlanta.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
nice stadium.
I haven't been inside of it, but I've driven past it.
I got
Um,
to see some pictures of it, but I've been in there.
well, that's cool. But and you got to realize Atlanta's right down the road, so in our division. So I get it that he doesn't want the team right down the road to have and the Georgia Dome wasn't that old either. Georgia Dome opened up in 1992, so and they
Yeah, for the
demolished it
Olympics. Yeah, with
already. You
host
know,
the Olympics.
well, Turner Field was the one that was actually built for the Olympics, the baseball stadium, which
Stadium,
is
yeah.
yeah, which Turner Field opened up in 1996 and 95, but it's owned by Georgia State now. The city of Atlanta sold it to Georgia State University, and it's their football
Yeah,
stadium now.
because I think Atlanta's in Alpharetta now. They up the road.
Yeah,
That Truist Park, whatever it is. I haven't been
yeah, but
to it.
it's not in Alpharetta though. It's closer to like Sandy Springs area, like closer to there. It's like up there like around DeKalb County, somewhere like that. It might still be in Fulton County, but barely. It's like
It-
right off of like 285, like right off of there somewhere. But
I mean, I hadn't been over there to see it, but I thought it was I thought it was real close to Alpharetta. But I looked at it on the
well, it
thing.
might be. I'm getting mixed. I'm getting mixed up with Lawrenceville. My bad. It might be near. Anyway, it's north of Atlanta, like way to the north, like
No,
well near Sandy Springs and all that area. It's up that way, but I and that might be near Alpharetta. I'm getting some of the suburbs mixed up. I was thinking about Lawrenceville at the time when you said Alpharetta, but
because I know about the old Turner Field. I know I've seen that, been in that, and
yeah,
know all
well,
the
yeah,
about that.
well, because Turnerfield just barely to the north. I mean, just north of downtown. You can see Turnerfield from downtown, but
Yeah,
um, but as far as the stadium is concerned in Charlotte, I mean, I get why he wants a new one, but I don't think he's going to get everything he wants. But the city's still going to give him something. I mean, they know what happened with the Hornets, and they're not going to let the Panthers go. What'll happen if he doesn't get it? I don't think he'll leave the metro area. I think he'll just call up Governor McMaster and just if he
go to
doesn't get what he
South.
wants, yeah, just go to Fort Mule or something like that, and just build a stadium out. Because I know there were rumors one time. I feel like he'll build if he can't get in Charlotte, he'll go like around Carowinds area and build one out that way.
Yeah,
There's a
that
lot
way.
of there's not one because I know one time over there by the flea market area over there on 51 near Carowinds, right off Carowinds Boulevard. There were rumors from someone who close to the situation who's in the real estate that said Tepper was looking at some land out near Carowinds too. So and there's a lot of open field space out near Carowinds, so I could see him building a
Happening out
stadium
that way.
out near Carowinds. if he can't get what he wants in Charlotte. But I don't think he's
Yeah,
gonna
he ain't gonna go
leave
far
there.
south. Yeah, like
Not,
going to
there,
Columbia.
no, I'm talking no, not at all. But he'll do that before he will leave. He's not going to leave the Charlotte metro area, I don't think, and I don't think he will leave the whole Carolina. They would still be the Carolina Panthers, no matter what he
Yeah,
does,
yeah,
and would still be considered like still in the Charlotte metro area. Like the new headquarters is going to be in Rock Hill anyway, which is still the Charlotte metro area. It's not like he's going to move to St. Louis or anything like that. I don't see him leaving the area. I don't see him doing a relocation. I just see him maybe just going across the South Carolina border, just south of the city, and doing something like that.
yeah. That's what I said too, man. But I get it that he they won't. He wants that. He wants the city to pay for that. Because I think, like you said, Jerry Jones, that was his. That's his. He paid for that. The man got more money than Jerry. But I don't know. It honestly, I like the stadium you got there. But if you're trying to get bigger things to come to the city, I understand.
Yeah, here's the thing about that. They just renovated the stadium in 2014. The stadium opened up in 1996. It's not in 1996. It's not like the stadium was built in the 70s. I
No,
mean,
no, no,
you
no. That's why I
not
said the
like
stadium is fairly new.
I
I'm
don't.
new.
Yeah, to me, when you build a stadium, you don't build a stadium to tear it down in 25 years. You build like I always say, when you build a stadium, you're building it to be in it for many, many, many years. That's the whole point of it. It's like because the thing about it, if you're gonna get rid of a stadium that quickly, then just like I didn't understand what Charlotte Coliseum. They built it in 1988, and then they were
Demolished it.
well, that's not what I'm getting at. They built it in 1988, and then by 2002 or 2001, you're already saying we need a new arena. I'm like, when the one you're in is only 13 years old. I'm like, you don't build, and then you still end up demolishing in '07, and you still built a new arena in '05 or '06, whenever it was. My point is, you don't build an arena just to be. They did the same thing with the Miami arena. The Miami arena opened up in 1988, and it was like demolished by 2004, 2005, same thing. And the thing about it, theirs was built in 1988, and they built a new arena in 1998. So you don't build an arena and open up just to only have it be in it for 10 years. My point is, you build it to be in it for a long time. If that's the case, what's going to happen 20 years from now? You're going to want to, if they build a new stadium, you're going to want to tear that one down and build a new one again? Same thing. Like, here's the thing with Spectrum Center. They've been in Spectrum Center since '05. It's 2021. They've been in it 16 years. They were in Spectrum Center longer than the original Hornets were in the Charlotte Coliseum. And the Spectrum Center is about the age that the Charlotte Coliseum was when they tore it down. So is it time to build a new arena and tear the Spectrum Center down now? No. So my point is,
Mhm.
I don't understand what's the point of building it if you're just going to knock it down in a decade and a half.
I personally, I like the old Coliseum better than the Spectrum Center.
Well,
That's in my opinion.
I like Spectrum better because it's newer and got more amenities and luxury suites. But from a nostalgia standpoint, I like the Charlotte
Oh,
Coliseum. I don't. I hate that they tore it down. I would have kept it up there. Just like you
yeah,
still
it's
got the
like a historical landmark or something.
well, just like
I mean,
well, I mean, actually, you still have concerts and stuff there. I mean, it was still wasn't old. It's just like you still got the Bojangles Coliseum, which was built in the '50s, and it's still there,
yeah,
which is definitely a historical landmark. That's the old arena that you had NWA wrestling events and stuff at Jim
yep.
Crockett Promotions flagship arena, and it's still there and still in good shape, been remodeled, renovated, and everything. All they do is renovate Shark Coliseum, keep it, and use it for miscellaneous venues and stuff. Just to have three arenas in your city is a luxury, but we still got the two, and then
Cause I
UNC
don't
Charlotte.
even know. Well, I mean, the last time I don't even know when that circus been. Yeah, I know they used to have the circus out in the parking lot at the Coliseum, the Soul Circus, back in the day,
Yeah,
out
they.
at
I
the
mean,
old Coliseum.
yeah, it's like condominiums and hotels and stuff out there now, and on that land. But now, when it comes to nostalgia, I like it because of the parking and stuff too, because it was all in the open space.
Space, yeah.
It was near the airport, so it was convenient for visiting teams. All they had to do was fly out and come straight to the arena, stay at a
I
hotel
think
by the arena, and go.
I went to a couple Monday Night Raws, the
Yeah, yeah. So
couple Hornet games.
yeah, I've been to some Hornets games. I've been to Shark Coliseum plenty of times. I've been to the circus there too, Ringling Brothers and all that too. I've actually never been inside of the Bojangles Coliseum, but
I've been there. They used to have Monster Jam in there. I've been to that. The
yeah,
Monster Truck things.
yeah. AEW Dynamite's coming to Bojangles Coliseum in September, I think. So
Ooh, trying to go.
yes, but anyway, I'm not getting off on all that. But yeah, you don't build arenas just to tear them down just like that. But the thing
No,
is,
you don't.
he's a new owner coming in. He wants to make his splash, and he knows the city's going to yield his demand. So I mean, it is what it is.
But at some point in time, I mean, in that situation, like you said, stadium it's 25 years old. It's not. I mean, like I said, it's not old. They just upgraded things on the stadium.
Yeah, I
it
don't have
holds enough people. I mean, Jesus Christ.
72,000. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to say about it. I mean, it is what it is.
And I'm gonna leave it at that because, like I said, man, we'll see. But
Yeah,
I just had to break that story because I was gonna talk about it. I think it was like 2 weeks ago when I had seen the story, but it slipped my mind. I was like, something I was gonna talk about. I was like, oh shit, but now I remember. But I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
yeah.
Definitely
I
with
mean,
you.
I don't have any more commentary for it. So I mean, whatever the last word you got on it sounds good to me.
Now, okay. Well, we at that hour and 10 mark anyway, man. We finna probably finna wrap the show up. Next week, I think we're gonna do is it next week? It's this week, next week. We got the next. We're gonna have a interview with Coach Coach Copeland from Greensboro Page wrestling head wrestling coach.
Maurice Copeland.
Yeah,
I've known that kid his whole life. His grandma used to live. His grandma lives next door to where my grandma lived. So I know him, his twin sister. I know his grandma. I know his uncle. You know, Jamie Bennett he used to play running back for Anson County. Is
yeah, that's his uncle.
yeah, and he also was running back for Anson as well. Maurice.
Yeah,
Maurice Chapel Hill alum as well. A very intelligent young man, a very bright young man too. I think people are going to be happy to see see his intellectual side too. He did not go to Chapel Hill on a football scholarship. He went there academically. Very
right.
smart young man. And I've known him since he was a kid, so I'm proud to see him doing well, and I'm excited to be talking to him here as a part of the podcast.
Oh yeah. So that show is probably gonna be on that's
Hey,
probably gonna be a Saturday show.
that's cool,
So
and I'm gonna do this again like I did last week. Kenneth Crawford, where are you? Show up. We're easy to find. Montez
I've
Ford,
been
where
hitting
are you?
them up. I've been hitting them up. I even went as far as to hit somebody that has his personal number,
Yeah,
see
like
what they
Montez
say
Ford,
about it.
Kenneth
Yeah.
Crawford. You ain't gotta bring Bianca. You ain't gotta bring Angelo. Just show up, man. We're looking for you. We're from your native land. I know you claim Chicago, but you graduated from Anson Senior High School, class 2008. You even hold track records at Anson Senior High School. We know you, man. Show
Yes,
up. We're
sir.
looking for you. We're looking
Uh
for you. The people
and
are
I'm
looking
also
for you.
and I'm also gonna probably have another one coming up. I'm waiting for a response from that one. That was gonna be our old buddy Nelson.
Nelson Russian.
Nelson is mass media. We're gonna be with the
I would love
mass
to.
media.
Good personal friend of mine, doing an excellent job coaching the offensive line at Anson Senior High School. Former standout at Gardner Webb University, former Anson standout himself when it comes to football. So, and a very smart, intellectual young man in his own right too. I think one thing about Nelson Russian is one of the brightest people that you can have a conversation with. I think the people are going to get a lot of substance with Nelson Russian, and you're going to get a mixture of humor. You're going to get a lot of substance. You're going to get a lot of intellect, and I think that's going to be one of our better shows. So I'm super excited to speak to my good friend Nelson on here.
All right, yeah. So we got a good thing. We got a couple slates lined up, man. I got
I want to before you go. I hate. I don't want anybody's comments to go unacknowledged. I see where Snatching Souls said
oh,
DJ Wagner is staying loyal to home high school, like he did. Not sure what that's a reference to, but Nick, if you know what he's talking about,
I think he's saying like how Chris Paul was. He never left the state. He stayed pretty much
yeah.
stayed in the hometown pretty much basically. But he left
Okay,
Forsyth,
and
went
he's
to Wake
saying,
Forest.
gotcha. He's saying DJ Wagner is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just didn't want his point to go ignored. So, since
Oh no
he's
no no no.
participating,
I appreciate you
uh,
following through, y'all. Y'all check his channel out. He does some sports casts at times too. So y'all check his
uh,
channel out too, man. It's pretty dope. So
yeah, man, we got
y'all
to lift
follow the
each other.
home.
We got. He's showing us love. We got to show him love. Let's lift each other up.
Oh yeah. So I appreciate you for coming through, snatching souls. Also, CM for coming through. I think he
Yes,
was talking
sir.
about the Chris Paul situation. Yeah.
Yeah, CM Punk. Yeah, CM.
Yeah, and co-host Darren came through. I think he lost connection or phone might have went out, but I don't know. He was in for a second, but appreciate him for following through as well. Appreciate my co-host T Hard for coming through with us tonight.
Anytime, brother.
And like I said, we finna get rolling. This train is only getting better. No.
All right, man.
And
I'll see you next week, my brother.
all right. With that being said, man, we are out of here for tonight. Thank y'all. God bless, and y'all be safe. Move around out there.
Yes, sir.